If you wanted to obtain a copy of it at the end, once it's ready, I am happy to share that recording with you as well. So let's talk just a little bit about who's Jill and why am I so passionate about Hygge? What have I done with my life personally, professionally, that's gotten to me to this point where I started Hygge in a Box and Hygge Canada. Personally, I love to teach others how to take time to slow down, how to simplify, and how to find more joy in their life and that sweet life, that life with Hygge. Tonight, I'm going to share with you my story, parts of my story. I'm going to open up. I'm going to share a little bit of my family with you. I'm also going to be a little bit vulnerable with you. And really, it's all about connection. It's about vulnerability. It's about opening up to others and learning at the same time. So, as I mentioned, I'm very passionate about self-care, wellness, of course, Hygge. Professionally speaking, just really quickly, I work for an organization for the last 18 years called Applin. Within Applin, I'm really passionate about working with people one-on-one or within a group setting to help develop them, to onboard them. But also this past year, through my time with Applin, I became a workplace health and performance certification ambassador through Wellness Works Canada. And with that, lead a lot of our wellness programming at Applin. I am also the founder of Hygge Canada, that I started 6 years ago, where we did workshops, retreats, a whole variety of things. Things came to a bit of a halt doing in-person during the pandemic. So we shifted to some virtual, and then excited to say that we're doing some more in-person things now. 2018, with my sister, we co-founded Hygge in a Box, which is a seasonal subscription box. We also do gift boxes and all sorts of fun things in that capacity, and really trying to get Hygge into the hands of individuals on a fun basis. And then we also started going further back 9 years ago. It's called the Urban Homestead, where I learned about the traditional wisdom around whole food cooking, about old school style preparation, developed a pretty giant edible garden, and started teaching classes on the art of fermentation, bone broths, and other things around whole food cooking, which all ties back to my life with Hygge. And I didn't even know that back in 2014. I didn't even know the word Hygge back in 2014, but it all tied really nicely together. So my life goes much deeper, though, than my resume. And I want to start off by just sharing a little bit about my family and where I come from, and give you a little bit of background on my why. Why do I do this? Why is Hygge important to me? Why is that slow, simpler lifestyle important to me as well? This is my family. This is my immediate family. This was taken a few years back at my brother's wedding. And even though I didn't know it, my Hygge journey started long ago, probably back from my early years as a child. Some of my fondest memories, so this is myself, of course, longer hair there, my husband, my daughter, who is now a 16-year-old teenager, my parents, my brother and his wife, my dad, my nephew, my sister, who is my partner with Hygge in a Box, and then my nephew and my brother-in-law. And this was taken a few years ago, and really just a joyful time for us. So I thought it was a great picture to be able to share with you as well. But back to childhood with my brother and my sister and my parents, we would, every couple of years, we would throw some skis into the car. We would pack the car with our luggage and head off to wherever we could to go downhill skiing and really bond as a family. But we built so many memories during those times, the road trips, the fun that we had when we were at the ski hills. But really the time that really resonated, and the deepest memories and fondest memories I have of those times being together as a family, was not the act of skiing, but it was the time afterwards when we would come together as a family, being tired, back in a hotel room or somewhere, sitting around, relishing the activities of the day, laughing about the funny stuff, eating our s'mores in front of a fireplace, but just really bonding. And those to me are probably my early childhood Hygge memories. And as I became an adult, as I started to develop my own family, it was important for me to start creating traditions like my family did on our ski trips, whether it's regular Friday night dinners, whether it's spending time together, going on hikes, maybe sitting around a bonfire, playing games, having movie night, doing puzzles together, really became so important for me as I became an adult and started to have my own family. But those memories that I cherish from childhood certainly have tied back to how I want to be with my own family today. However, as life happens, sometimes life stops being so cozy. Sometimes reality sets in, hardship sets in. As a child, moving through into adulthood, having my own family, creating those memories, as important as they have been, life came to a bit of a screeching halt back in 2011 when I was 40 weeks pregnant. And then I wasn't. And this is where I'm going to be more vulnerable with you. So at 40 weeks pregnant, I lost my second daughter, Clara. And at that time, I felt that my world was coming to a screeching halt. I didn't know if I would ever smile again. I didn't know if I would get out of bed again. And it was a very, very dark time for me. But I remember someone speaking to me and said, you just have to get out. You have to get out. And if that means just get out into nature, if it means fake it till you make it, spend time with your loved ones, those are going to be the things that slowly over time will help get you out of that grief. And so that made sense. It resonated, but it wasn't something that I was able to really do at that time. Until I realized and I had sudden clarity of what was really important to me. And that was the family that I had. It was the daughter that I had, which is my daughter, Maya. And what I was really trying to do at that time was figure out ways for me to connect with my family, to connect back with myself. I didn't really know the word hygge at that time either. It was something that later on, a couple years later, I became more familiar and aware of what the word was. But at that time, I started to do things to really get out of that phase. I started to treat myself like I was a survivor. And what do survivors do? We have to get out there. We need to get out there into the wild world. So I spent more time in nature. Every day I forced myself to get out in nature. I started gardening, as hard as that was. I would get out and start gardening. I was spending a lot of time just doing things that I normally wouldn't do, taking me out of my comfort zone, hiking in areas that I probably shouldn't have been hiking in, doing canoe trips with my friend and my daughter, even picked up horseback riding just as a fun hobby, things that really helped me get grounded back to where I needed to be and to really connect with my family. And even though I didn't know what hygge was, when I was introduced to the word hygge, it started to make sense for me. I was gardening. I was preparing traditional foods. I was doing everything I can to really create those meaningful moments with my family and get myself out of the dark grief that I was in. And then when the word hygge came to my attention again, I thought, this is something that really resonates, and I need to be able to bring it more into the world with other people to share with them how powerful the impact had been for myself. But before I go into anywhere else, one of my biggest loves of my life is my little dog, Madden. She's my joy, and certainly I wanted to share her with you as well, because to me, I call her my hygge dog. She just looks like a ball of hygge. So how did I learn about hygge? And when I was first introduced to the idea of it, I really didn't think much about it. And I was introduced to the word during somewhere in those years of grief. And I thought, yeah, that kind of sounds trendy. But when I really started to research it and delve a little bit more into what it actually meant, it was really evident to me that it's a word. It's a word. It's centered around mindfulness. It's around purposeful intention of what you can bring to yourself. And if sometimes we're in those moments where we're just sitting around a fireplace, or we're sitting there with friends and we're laughing so hard that we're having a truly deep belly laugh, that we're almost in tears. And it's hard to identify, what is that feeling I'm having? It could be pure joy. It could be more, but sometimes that word hygge just defines it. It just encapsulates that feeling of, oh man, this is a really great feeling and emotion that I'm having. I'm content. I'm feeling happy. I'm in a, maybe it's a state of bliss. Maybe it's just a state of calm, whatever that might be. It's a word. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But when I started to think about hygge and how I can create my areas of my life into a more hygge-ish type, I started to find joy in more things that I was doing. I found less tedious actions of being at work. I was finding even pleasure in some of the chores that I would otherwise not enjoy doing at home, because I was creating moments of saying, this is giving me that time to connect what I'm doing in a mindful, intentional manner, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And we'll explore some of that. So while I'm still very much working on my hygge journey, I don't think there's really anyone that could say they're a true hygge expert. It's something you feel. It's something that you learn, you feel, you set intentions for, you bring it into the moments, you identify that moment when you feel it's a hygge moment. But I really do believe that hygge is something that the world needs now more than ever. And in a society that exists today, we're running from one thing to the next. We've got one errand after the other. We're jumping from one social media to the next social media. We're constantly on the move. We're constantly in demand, and we're always so busy being busy. We're caught up in that hustle culture, is another way of looking at that. And so there's really something to be said about, even if it's just a word, to say, I'm going to have a hygge moment. Right now, I'm going to pause and I'm going to create this moment of hygge for myself. And it could be 3 minutes. It could be the action of making yourself a cup of tea. It could be the action of opening a bag of coffee and smelling the coffee beans for that brief moment. But it's really being able to say to yourself that I just need time out. I need a couple of minutes. And if hygge can allow you to do that, that's a good starting point. Again, it's a word. I'm going to take a hygge moment for myself. But what actually is it? I'm trying to give you examples of it, but now let's kind of break it down a little bit on what is hygge. First of all, how do you say hygge? People often say, is it hygge? Is it hygge? Is it hygge? It's hygge. And so the way that it's basically spelt, it sounds how it's spelled. Hygge is a proper way to say it. And it is a concept that originated back in Danish culture, back a couple hundred years ago. Actually, the Norwegians, I believe, are the ones that took claim to it first. And then the Danish, I guess, took the concept and made it their own. And hygge is not just for Danish. This concept of coziness in English, there really isn't a direct translation, but the best translation truly is coziness, conviviality, comfort, hominess. But really in the Danish culture, where there's a strong focus for that sense of comfort, for that sense of peace, of connection, is a really, really big cornerstone of the Danish culture. And hygge is a word that's just a part of their everyday language. It's an everyday language usage for them. It's not something that's a trend. It's not a fashion. It's kind of taken the world by storm over the years. It's just a part of their everyday existence. It was so great seeing you on the weekend. What a hygge time we had. Oh, let's go to that coffee shop. It's so hygge. Let's go and have some coffee break right now. Let's have a hygge moment. It's a part of the everyday language. And we're going to take a look at all of the coziest countries, or some of the countries that are considered some of the happiest countries in the world. And first, we'll talk about, why is it so popular though? In 2017, when one of the first hygge books was released, it hit the world by storm, literally by storm. It was on the bookshelves everywhere. Hundreds of books have since popped up on the topic of hygge, blogs, websites, businesses. It's all over. And why is it so important? Again, because the warmth that it brings, the concept, and I'm going to say it often, but that intentional, mindful intention of creating comfort for yourselves from the inside out. At first you feel it on the inside, and then it becomes part of your outside world. And so as I mentioned, it's become so woven into their DNA. And other Scandinavian countries have other words that emulate coziness or variety of different words. And I should have put that in there to give you a little bit of a vocabulary listing on all of the different countries and some of the words. And within the Danish culture, there's so many other fun words like hygge-busker, which is a type of pants that you might wear that are your coziest pants. There's hygge-krog. There's a variety of different hygge words that we'll look at. But all over the world, this concept of creating connection and comfort and happiness has been well researched. 159, I believe, countries year over year are being evaluated by different researchers, and the World Happiness Report year over year consistently demonstrating which countries tend to be in the top of the happiness report. So what I want to do is pause here and ask you to, if you were to think of what you think would be the top 5 countries that are consistently at the top of the World Happiness Report. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about which top 5 countries do you know or do you think would constantly hit in the top 5 of the World Happiness. Any thoughts? Okay, so Norway is constantly, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Japan. I would guess Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Holland. Okay, see if there's anyone else that had some thoughts. Well, okay, Austria, Norway, Sweden, Germany, Canada. Well, Canada certainly is up there, but not, sadly, not in the top 5. So Finland has been consistently ranked at number 1, and it's been estimated or guesstimated that it could hit number 1 again in 2023. Denmark, number 2, Iceland, number 3, Switzerland, Netherlands, Luxembourg, there's Sweden and Norway, Israel, and New Zealand. So as you can see in the top 10 out of, I believe it was 149, there are countries, 159 countries that are part of this report are consistently in that top. So the 5 Scandinavian countries. Now, keep in mind that these are also some of the countries that have the longest, darkest, coldest winters and extremely high taxes, yet they fall into the World Happiness Report year over year at the top. Now, we're not going to break it down, and there's lots of reasons why and theories and examples, and it's very, it's 100 and whatever page report. We're not going to go into that, but the point is that they're doing something right over in those Scandinavian countries. I am also proud to say that Canada was number 15. I think we dropped a place from 2021, but that's okay. We're still in the top 20, and the US was number 16. So it was 150 countries. And with Denmark being at number 2, these two tend to fight for the top 3. So Denmark, I think, has been at the top. It's been number 3, but certainly happy to see that in that category there. Now, there are lots of benefits to hygge, and we're going to cover a lot of things today. There's emotional benefits, there's physical benefits, and there's relationship/social benefits of hygge. And too many to cover in one session, but really, when we're looking at the emotional aspects, by bringing in that ability to help overall create a sense of wellness, a sense of well-being, a sense of emotional, physical connection, and that relationship. All of that comes together to give you that opportunity to, number 1, really pay attention to your wellness, your self-care, your well-being. And there's been lots of research. Again, we're not going to focus on the research today, but there's a lot of research. And through some of the research, the Happiness Research Institute, which is in Copenhagen, shows there's an ability to decrease depression, anxiety, improve self-worth, increase optimism, greater sense of mindfulness, self-compassion, gratitude from a physical perspective, right? Improve sleep, weight regulation, if you develop a healthier relationship with the food and being mindful with the food that you're eating, less cortisol levels, the improved practice of self-care, overall relationships, so that focus on togetherness, that feeling of comfort and safety, improving intimacy, increased trust, building those connections. And so when you're thinking overall around the benefits of hygge, there's only good to be discovered from there, right? To find those moments. Again, hygge doesn't have to be an event. Hygge doesn't have to be something that you have to set aside, you know, an hour and a half of your day, because most people don't have time for that. Hygge isn't something that has to cost you money. Hygge is something that could happen in that, as I mentioned, it could take 3 minutes to have a hygge break and a hygge moment and pause. It could be in nature when you're watching birds interact with each other. It could be in nature when you're watching the squirrel gather their stuff for the fall, and you enjoy that moment. That again is that mindful moment, but you can also say, that was a hygge moment. So there's lots of research and support around that. And as I mentioned, it's really all in a word, and it can mean something different to what hygge means to one person can mean something completely different to another. Some individuals might mean just hunkering down, being cozy, sheltering in place indoors in the winter, you know, catching up on Netflix, taking hot baths, watching, reading some cozy books. That could definitely be hygge for one person. Or one person might say, nah, for me in the winter, I cannot wait. I want to hit the ski hills. I want to be outside. I don't want to be hibernating indoors. And it can be anywhere in between, as an example. So it's all in a word. There's no right or wrong. There's no right way to hygge. There's no wrong way to hygge. It's what hygge means to you. It's what brings you joy. And when you recognize that joy, when you recognize that moment that's unique to you in that moment, that's yours to own. So it's all in a word. There's no right or wrong. It's what it means to you. So how do I do hygge? Hygge is a verb. Hygge is a noun. Hygge can mean a variety of things. And so absolutely anyone can embrace it. I don't have a Scandinavian background, by the way. I'm from Manitoba. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, also known as Winterpeg. And so I do believe that I have some understanding of how cold and how dark and how long the winters can be in Scandinavia. But I also really appreciate and understand how amazing our summers can be and all the seasons in between. And so anyone from anywhere, from any nationality, can embrace hygge. It's not just for Scandinavian countries. And so it really, again, goes back to that. Can you find moments to create cozy, peace, comfort, happiness? I don't have to move to Denmark for those things. You can do that anywhere. When I was traveling for work in my first job, I've been with my company now for 18 and a half years, but previous to that, I was working on the road. I was a traveling salesperson, driving from city to city, white knuckle driving in the winters, and going to places that were less than favorable. But I always made it a hygge opportunity without even knowing it. I didn't know what that was 20 years ago. I had no idea. But reflecting back, that's just intuitively who I am. And maybe it's because of my childhood memories and the fun and the ways that my family would create those moments for us. But I would go to these places and find that little coffee shop that wasn't a big chain coffee shop. I would find a bed and breakfast to stay at instead of the chain hotels. I would find that cute little store, because every town has them. We all know that. I would find the cute little yoga studio that most people, so when I would come back from my road trips that a lot of my colleagues really did not look forward to, I loved it. I came back and I was happy. I had a good time. They all thought I was crazy, but I created hygge opportunities for myself anywhere. So when we're looking at as I mentioned, the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen, Mike Wicking has also written 4 incredible books that I kind of refer to as my hygge Bible, but I have dozens of hygge books, has, I guess, coined the hygge manifesto. And I highly encourage reading this book. If you haven't, you could also get it, there are the libraries. You can get a podcast, not a podcast, on Audible, I believe it's on there. But some really great insight on, well, what is that manifesto and what are the 10 elements that create that Hygge manifesto? So number one is atmosphere. And that's really what's considered the first step in practicing Hygge, is creating the right atmosphere for yourself. So to the Danes, there's no recipe for Hygge that's complete without candles, without dim lighting, without not sitting under bright fluorescence. Without that element, they're creating that cozy dimness, where when often, if you would ask a Dane what they most associate Hygge with, 85% will typically say, well, of course, candles. So that's important, is creating an atmosphere of coziness for yourself. Presence. So we're busy in our lives, as I mentioned, we're running from one thing to the next. We're busy being busy. We're running from one thing to the other. And often we're doing it without being mindful or not being present. We're on autopilot. We're driving from one place to the next and don't even know how we got there. But that would be considered un-Hygge. And so when you're connecting with other people, don't check your phones. Have a no cell phone rule at the table. When you're with friends, there's nothing less Hygge than sitting with 4 people at a dinner table and you're all checking your phones. The other aspect of it is pleasure, finding pleasure. From a culinary perspective, Hygge is all about giving yourselves pleasure. It's about giving yourselves the break from the demands of life, from savoring in the food that you're eating, the process of making the coffee, the process of the baking, the process of gardening it and harvesting it creates pleasure. And Scandinavian countries are famous for their pastries and they love their Scandinavian candies. So it's my happy thing as well. Equality. Equality is the essence of you sharing your experience with someone that you care about. And so before you set out to a journey to find happiness through Hygge, see if you have a close friend that you can create that Hygge journey with, or that you can go out for that Hygge coffee date with, or that Hygge hike. Whatever that might be, finding a cute little restaurant together and making it your special time together. One of my good girlfriends, our Hygge time together is we go for a nice meal and then we go to a cozy movie. A couple of weeks ago, we went to a morning movie and brought our blankets and brought our tea and had a real cozy Hygge moment. And so finding someone that you can share those experiences with is important as much as it is about enjoying it yourself. Gratitude. It's so easy to forget gratitude, but remembering to be grateful for all that you have can produce tremendous amount of happiness. And when I was getting through my grief, those years that I was going through my grief, in fact, I don't really think I really was able to truly overcome the level of grief until more recent years, until probably 2018. When I really truly discovered and embraced Hygge at that point, when I started, or 2017, when I started Hygge Canada, and I delved more into it. So about 6 years of faking it till I made it, and then really started to practice that gratitude for what I had and learning about it and creating more harmony in my life and being in the moment with one another, having more harmony around being peaceful in experiences, recognizing not wanting to argue. Now, it's always hard when you have a 16-year-old daughter at home. Those things are going to happen, but trying to create more harmony, finding more comfort, right? Everything that we've done up until this point, or we've talked about this point, is about creating atmosphere and about creating comfort and that vibe and that element, right? Those cozy cabin socks, the candles, those Hygge busker pants that I mentioned, which are the pants that you would never be caught dead wearing in public, but they're just so cozy, you keep them. Truce. Right? Finding truce. It's the 8th element of Hygge, and that pairs really well with harmony. So when you're practicing Hygge, you leave the drama outside. And sometimes that's hard. And we just passed the holiday season, and that tends to be where a lot of drama surfaces. But finding moments of truce so that we can shift from a negative energy to a positive energy. Togetherness, right? This is the element of Hygge that pairs really well with equality, right? One of the most important aspects of Hygge is to create that environment of togetherness. And then shelter, right? Last but not least is that element of shelter that brings everything together. You should be practicing Hygge where you feel safe, where you feel in your home, where you feel at peace, where you feel alive. It could be in the forest, it could be on a hike, it could be in the mountains, it could be in your having a really cozy time at home. So when I'm at home, it's a perfect segue to that. I like a cozy, comfortable, calming space. And I wanted to bring this, we can't delve into every aspect of the manifesto. That's why I encourage the book. But number one, the first thing is you create the atmosphere. You create that calming space. Now, I do happen to love this is my living room. I do happen to love my space. It brings me a lot of calm. It brings me a lot of, but it took me years to create a space that felt comfortable for me, that truly resonated with me, because I like calm, but I also like having a space that has texture, soft lighting. You can't tell in that picture because it's broad daylight, and I happen to have a lot of like nice sunlight, but bringing in different elements, textures. So these pillows, and this did not have to cost me a ton of money to do my decorating. I went to HomeSense and I find things, and I go on Wayfair and I find stuff that I love that brings me joy. But I'm not going on a crazy shopping binge. It doesn't need to break the bank. But for me, this is what creates my hygge space for me. For somebody else, it might be something else that brings that sense of coziness, that sense of comfort, that sense, what textures do you like? What decor do you like? What brings you calm? I like wood and warmth. I like plants. I like objects that have a memory for me. So on the back wall here, there's different objects in there that I've collected over time from my parents, from travels, from antique stores. I love vintage. I love bargain shopping and finding stuff. So whatever it is, but instead of looking for the latest fashion trends, look for what brings you joy. Decorate your home with the things that make you happy. And the items that are there that no longer bring you joy or happiness, repurpose it, recycle it, replace it, share it, donate it, and create that space that's for you. And part of that in this concept, as I mentioned earlier, is the hygge crow. Now in chat, I'd love to know, does anybody know what this is? Has anyone heard of this word and have an inkling of what this means? Does anyone know what this is? Nope. Okay. So, no, but maybe a cozy spot. Okay. Well, that's exactly it. Cozy place, corner, nook. Okay. A reading chair. Is it a nook? Yes. Okay. Excellent. So basically, this is one of the cornerstones, the pinnacles of a Danish household. Again, I'm not Danish, but I'm still going to create a hygge krog. I'm still looking in my house where that little tiny spot is just for myself. And I think I've got one. I've landed on a few areas, and then my husband decided to take it over. And then I found another one. My daughter decided to take it over, and then I found another one, and my dog decides that she wants to take it over. So I'm working on my space, but really it doesn't have to be a whole room. It truly could be that chair, that cozy chair, that corner that's just for you, right? A space that's just for you. It could be your bedroom if you create that into your sanctuary. It's a nook. It could be a windowsill. It could be a piece of comfortable furniture that is typically maybe by a window where you could look out at the world as the world goes by. My favorite thing is to watch the snow. I love a good snowstorm. I love a good rainstorm, and to be able to sit by the window and watch that and have my cup of tea, light my candle really early in the morning as I'm having my coffee and looking out the window and just being comfortable and being able to contemplate the day, to practice a little bit of gratitude. And again, these aren't things that you don't need to break the bank, which, by the way, as we know, as some of you may know, IKEA comes from Scandinavia, hygge to the max. So a great place to look for ideas for some throw cushions, some pillows, whatever that might look like for yourself. The key, though, in this area is to not have technology. It's an area to sit, to relax, to stretch, to read, and really be able to put social media aside, put the electronics away so that you have a space for yourself. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about self-care. As I mentioned earlier, the two really go hand in hand. And there's a reason that hygge has become such a trend around the world over the last, let's call it, number of years, 6 years since the first book hit the shelves. But our mental health and our physical health really depend on a routine that truly nourishes us, right? If we ask ourselves, how would our life change for the better, right? If we can give ourselves the self-care practices that we need in every aspects of our lives, how would your life change for the better? Most of us would make sure that everyone else around us is taken care of. And I'm sure a lot of us are very good at taking care of others and forgetting to take care of ourselves. And so I know that feeling. I know that feeling of being worn out from life, from the challenges that we encounter, raising a family, being busy with my career, having a dog, all of those things, having parents that are getting older and being stuck in that sandwich generation. I understand that. It's a real thing. And so many of us are very good at putting on that help and support for others and forgetting about ourselves. So we want to think about, how can we really make ourselves a priority? How can we create healthy practices? And again, in today's world, life does get to be stressful, and it's more important than ever for the ability of individuals to make their self-care needs a priority. It's that cliche, don your own life mask before supporting others. And it's so true. And there's umpteen different webinars and workshops and retreats and blogs and books and courses on this topic. And it's for a very specific reason. There's so many different types of self-care. Finding the right one that soothes you, that resonates with you, is going to be something that's unique to you. There's no one size that fits all. Self-care really does mean taking care of yourself so that you can feel healthy, whatever that looks like, whatever healthiness is for you, whatever those activities are. And creating positive feelings towards the self is so important, and it's really thought to be such a crucial aspect of well-being. Unfortunately, though, again, we often get caught up. We often forget how to do that. And so if hygge is an opportunity to create your self-care routine by saying, I'm going to take that 5-minute hygge break. I'm going to take that 5-minute walk. I'm going to take that 5-minute coffee tea break. I'm going to attach that word hygge to it because it's that mental reminder that this is a self-care moment, whatever that looks like. And we're going to look at that. And self-care goes so beyond a good night's sleep, a cup of tea, a hot bubble bath. That's a part of it, but it goes so beyond that. And there's so many ideas. We simply can't cover them all today. So I'm just going to share with you a couple that I thought kind of resonated. Number one is become your own best friend. And we are our own worst critics. We are the hardest on ourselves. That's normal, right? That's something that a lot of us struggle with. And so we have to stop looking out for others that are there to support us and look in the mirror, right? Learn to be your biggest fan. If you make a mistake, give yourself words of encouragement. When others treat you poorly, don't allow it, right? Move on. One of the essential ideas of self-care is loving yourself unconditionally. How about investing in yourself and looking at continued education? This is one of the self-care aspects for myself that I personally wanted to include because it's so important to me. This is a picture of my living room when I first moved in, so art wasn't on the walls and other things, but that's me being cozy on the couch, investing in myself as I'm taking courses and learning and bringing a hygge element to that with my favorite drink and my candle while taking courses. Use the commute to listen to podcasts instead of music. Listen to Audible and listen to some books that are important for you as you're going for your walk or you're driving or you're on the bus and you're in transportation. Always be learning. That's such an important part of self-care. How about simplifying your life? Sometimes it's committing to owning fewer things, but of better quality. When I moved into my new house, I did a huge downsize and it felt so good. Massive downsize from house to items, got rid of everything and really committed to owning what I really loved and what I only need to use. And it just feels good to declutter, because the less clutter you have, the less you have to worry about those things. Making sure that you love every article to the best of you can with your clothing. If I have stuff hanging in my closet that's been there for 4 years, I donate it. I'm not wearing it. I'm donating it. I'm trying to simplify and create more space in my life, create more space in my head and in my mind by getting rid of the mental clutter and the physical clutter. Wrap yourself in nature. This is probably one of the biggest cornerstones of Hygge, is really ingrained, like really being in nature as often as you can every day. And so whether you're able to be outdoors in nature or whether you're bringing nature inside, or better yet, both, it's a critical element for us all self-care. And I know for me, before the pandemic, I didn't think I knew how to raise plants. I could have sworn I did not have a green thumb except for the huge vegetable garden that I had outside, but indoor plants, forget it. During the pandemic, I'm sure like many of us, I went a little plant happy. I think I have about 15 plants in my house now, and I need more. But I love it. It brings me joy. Houseplants dramatically improve air quality in homes and offices. They add beauty to any room with grace. They bring color. There's so many sizes. You don't have to spend a lot of money on plants. Yes, there's some that are very expensive, but you don't need to invest in those. Just having the greenery. Adding houseplants is just one of the small things you can do to invest in your health. Other things that are so important to me is finding time to play. And during those 6 years or so that I really was grieving, and I know that sounds like a long time, but I didn't realize how much I was until I started to use some of these Hygge elements and strategies, and becoming much more mindful, intentional with my life and being purposeful. I didn't know how to have fun. I forgot how to play. And even with a daughter who needed my attention, playing Barbies and puzzles, I would do it, but I wasn't there in spirit. I was there in body only. And then I really learned how important it was just to give myself the permission to play. And I think part of it was guilt. Didn't know if I should be happy. I didn't know if I should be able to play. But just as soon as I released that guilt, and to give yourself permission to have fun. And did you know that training yourself to be more playful truly does lead to happiness? And that's goes without saying on research. Dancing in the rain, splashing in puddles, riding bikes, skipping ropes, swimming in the ocean, whatever that might be, can really bring a tremendous amount of wellness to yourself and your self-care. I had to show this picture because this truly was probably one of my best days of my life. And I was with two of my closest girlfriends, celebrating my friend's soon-to-be wedding. And we just laughed so hard all day. You can see the expression on my face. I was tempted to show all of the pictures, but there's a whole series of them where I was literally falling off of that little rocking horse. And it was so important. And I always remember that and cherish that good belly laugh. And so whether it's finding a comedy club and having a good hearty laugh, whether it's finding something, whether it's connecting with those people that just make you laugh, so important. Another self-care, try to undo the negative self-talk. So much easier said than done. Journaling is a way to be able to help with that, maybe organize our thoughts, tap into our creativity. But when we have those negative thoughts about ourselves, we often believe these thoughts, and we might get down on ourselves for something that we said or we did, and we ruminate on that, and over and over again, we're beating ourselves up because of something that maybe somebody else didn't even notice. So maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's taking that time to ask yourself, is this logical? Is this really something that has actually been an issue? And maybe other people don't really hold those same opinions of what you were worried about. And so daily journaling, getting some of your thoughts out, can really help you with that challenge that so many of us have with that negative self-talk. Forgive yourself and own your own power. Research shows that forgiveness can help us really reverse that sign of stress, anger. And so if you're withholding love for yourself, you're withholding your ability to truly connect, or you're feeling guilty, again, of doing something bad or something in the past, holding on to that self-directed anger does no good for you. You can only see it, right? It's only going to create a way to stay stuck in whatever that is. So if we feel like we've got little control or power over our lives, then we're not going to feel hopeful. But the more that we realize that we do have control and that we can forgive ourselves and that we own our power, then we will find ways to feel less helpless and more hopeful. And all of these examples directly links back to your self-care and taking responsibility for your own mindful intentions on how you want to show up, how you want to live, what lifestyle that you want to have. Other things that are so important, again, okay, I had to sneak in another one of those images in there, but a huge part of it truly is that togetherness and that laughter, as I've already spoken about. And so for me, and I wish I could show all the people that are important in my life, but really being able to be with the people that make you feel good. Oops, geez, sorry, don't know how that just happened. Let me go back. Really being with the people that make you feel good. And being with the people that lift you up, not with the people that bring you down. And sometimes it's easier said than done. But are there people that we're hanging on to that are creating negative energy for us? That's very un-hygge. Are there people in our circles? And it doesn't have to be large circles, right? The smaller, the better we can connect. And that ability to find those people in your inner circle that really get you, that you can find self-care moments, whether it's through laughter, whether it's through being with your family. This picture here is going to be one that I'm going to cherish forever, with my mom and my sister and myself in Lake Louise. It was right after the pandemic. My mom was and still is suffering with significant health-related issues. So taking this trip together, mother-daughter trip, was such a meaningful time for us to really connect and bond. We did yoga, we did some hiking, we practiced a ton of mindfulness, and we ate. And those times on bringing your people together, and with the activities that are associated that bring you that joy together as a group, are just really important to be finding that and creating that for yourselves. And I've talked a lot about mindfulness. I've talked a little bit about how do you savor things. Now, I didn't throw this picture in here for a plug for my Hygge in a Box business, but this was a picture that a photographer took. I didn't even know that she had taken that picture as we were on a photo shoot. And I distinctly remember smelling this candle and just really enjoying the scent and being grateful. This was also during the pandemic, and we were kind of all far apart, but closer to when the pandemic was quote unquote starting to end. We were so grateful that we can go out into nature and do this, and just having such a joyful day with my sister. And she just captured this moment of savoring, this moment of that simple pleasure of that moment that I was obviously having a hygge moment. So I wanted to share that with you. But savoring is the act of stepping outside of an experience to really review it, to appreciate it. And often we fail to stay in that moment. We forget to linger, and lingering is amazing. When you can linger and you can savor it and you can hold on to it for just a little bit longer, so that you make it a memory and something that you can reflect on later on. And being able to also do these things, as I mentioned, doesn't have to cost you money. You don't need a box of good stuff for that. You just need to be able to feel comfortable with yourself and find that inner coziness so that you can experience that other coziness, the utter coziness as well. Simple acts, listening to music. Again, as I've talked about, reading your book, even just, again, sitting by that window, watching the rain fall. Those moments can create that mindful opportunity, that savoring opportunity. Also, savoring, we think of food. Well, food obviously plays a huge role in all of this. And so one of the biggest simple pleasures in life is for us to be able to enjoy food. And we shouldn't have to always worry about restricting ourselves. Enjoy that cake, savor it, eat it mindfully. And again, better yet, make the food yourself, because then it will help you savor it even that much longer. And as I've mentioned, first, you have to feel hygge from the inside, and then it comes out. So going back to the core concepts of Hygge, they're really, truly deeply connected to that idea of slowness, simplicity. To truly Hygge, you need to slow down, even if it's just for that moment, as I mentioned. And at its core, it's being in that moment, enjoying that moment, really is a mindfulness practice. My mother, who is also a mindfulness practitioner, when I introduced her to the concept of Hygge, she's like, that's mindfulness. That's what I train my patients to do. And I'm like, yeah, Hygge actually is mindfulness. And because it's that intention, it's that attitude, it's that presence, it's that connection. So you can think about mindful meditations is what we often associate mindfulness with, but mindful journaling, picking up that journal so that you can, release negative self-talk or have a gratitude journal, but being connected to the moment. Having your hot cup of tea, having your candlelit, getting cozy, being in bed, writing your journal, mindful eating, really paying attention to what you're eating, not rushing through the process. If you were to sit down at a dinner and rush through your meal with each other and then get up and leave, that's not a Hygge meal. That's not mindful. We're just scarfing the food back because we have to rush to the next thing. So really thinking about how can we really mindfully create that mindful eating moment. Not going to happen all the time. That's reality. That's life. But when life presents it, to take it slow and savor, I would highly encourage that. Mindful consumerism as well, right? Buying what you need, not overspending, finding things that bring you joy, finding things that have quality over quantity. And just a couple other things along the lines of that is, how can you create that savoring, that mindfulness throughout the whole course of your day? From the minute you wake up, right? You can still check in with yourself, take a deep breath, take a shower, notice how the water feels on your skin. How does the soap smell? Make that cup of tea, smell it, and enjoy the taste when it's made for yourself. During the day, between tasks or meetings, just bring awareness to your stress levels if you're having a stressful day. Breathe. As you exercise, focus on your breath. Pay attention in nature, observe the colors, the seasons changing, restoring that calm. Maybe if you're driving to work, enjoy the commute home with a podcast, with some music, something that's going to bring you joy. I work it from home. So one of the things that I do sometimes is a commute home. So I leave my home office, walk around the block with the dog, and then I end my day. Sometimes I start the day, walk around the block, enter my office, and that's a mindful commute. Maybe at the end of the day, play with your kids, your pet, read a book, go to yoga class, really think about my emotions of the day, enjoy the process of cooking dinner, unwind in the evenings, imagining letting go of the tensions of the day, and then closing your eyes and looking forward to a nice sleep. So throughout the whole course of the day, there's so many little opportunities to enjoy that mindful Hygge moment. And a step in the right direction. So for the next 7 days, I'm just going to challenge you all to really practice the art of savoring by picking one experience to truly savor each day. It could be at the shower, the delicious meal, a walk outside. It could be any experience that you really enjoy. And then think about, right, what is it that brought me that? And practice sharing it with other people. Let them know, right? Be sure to practice some, common techniques to enhance that, and by bringing other people into the loop. And sharing. Maybe you're having that friend that has become your Hygge journey buddy, and talk about the moments that you savor with each other. A couple other things, and then we're going to wrap up. It wouldn't be a winter time Hygge session without talking a little bit about Hygge in the winter, or winter Hygge. So for some, it is the most glorious time of the year, right? We think of the pretty snow. Again, I personally am a snow baby, so I love the snow falling, the snow angels. Maybe it's a steaming hot cup of hot cocoa with gooey marshmallows afterwards. Could be from those who like to ski, to snowshoe, to just take walks on the river in the winter. And there's no shortage of reasons to celebrate and to love the winter festivities. However, this is not how many see winter. And some see it as gray skies, wet shoes, cold noses. For some, it's the least favorite time of the year. And so if you feel like your mood drops with the temperature, you're definitely not alone. While Jack Frost brings some cheer for some people, there's many individuals who struggle with seasonal affective disorder, winter blues, or we call it the February blahs. Obviously, seasonal affective disorder is something that requires More support than just bringing in elements of hygge. But if you're just feeling meh or blah, there's ways to try to get around that. And for the individuals who really just don't like winter, those are the ones I'm going to challenge even more to get outside, to embrace the winter, get outside, invest in the right winter gear. Right now is a great time of year where there's sales happening, right? Starting to get geared up for the spring. It's a good time to invest in the right winter gear for next year. Some people, maybe they like a hot and cold cycling, right? Not everybody is ready to do the polar bear plunge, but Scandinavians seem to embrace it and then like to hop in the sauna. If there's a spa nearby or a Scandinavian type resort or like a spa day, encourage that, or jump out, roll around in the snow and get into a hot shower, whatever floats your boat. If that's not your thing, don't do it. Oops, I don't know why that keeps happening. Try really thinking about natural light, opening up the blinds more, getting outside, getting that vitamin D, having a hot drink in hand, exercise more, plan those cozy nights, give support to those people. A lot of people in the winter get lonely, especially elders or those who aren't as mobile in the winter time. Sleep in when you have a chance, catch up on your reading, crafts, puzzles, games, baking, embracing that slow food movement. There's so many reasons to love winter and to embrace the winter. So if you feel that you're just wanting to hibernate all winter, I would encourage you to think about, how do the Scandinavians do it? What are the Scandinavian strategies to help me get through this? And I'll show you. One of the books that I particularly love is called The Nordic Guide to Living 10 Years Longer. Excellent strategies, great ideas. The Little Book of Hygge, Pia Edberg, we featured her. Well, we featured both of these in our boxes before, but she's from Vancouver. I love that she's a Canadian that's written this book. She's traditionally from Denmark. Just some great strategies, hundreds of books that are out there and podcasts and blogs and things. But I particularly love this one, The Nordic Guide to Living 10 Years Longer, and really rethinking winter and embracing the winter season. So I just wanted everyone to throw into chat on, what do you think that you will do to bring more hygge into your life? I would love to share, hear some of your thoughts on how you would bring more hygge into your life. And I know I went through a ton of information in an hour, but definitely wanted to give you a high level on some of these topics. Okay. What are some of the things that you can do to bring more hygge into your life? More moments of mindfulness and stillness, being more present. While on my way to work, need to stop and notice the sunrise. Definitely I'm starting with self-care, candles, reading nook. Love it. More than just 3-minute pauses, actually taste the coffee, candles and cozy blankets, natural light and a good book, enjoying a good meal made at home. I've been working on decluttering. I spend more time gardening this summer. Excellent. More mindfulness and things I do every day to enjoy creating a little nook. Okay, excellent. Love all of the ideas. So really, I wanted to pause here, and we've got, after this, we're going to do our big giveaway and then we'll wrap it up. So I'd like to see if anyone has any questions that you can, sorry, that keeps happening to me. Any questions that you have that I might be able to address. And if you do, either come off mute or throw the question in the chat if you aren't able to come off mute. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Jill. It's Kristen. I've talked to you on Instagram a few times.
Oh, hi, Kristen. Yes.
I was just curious of, like, with your journey with it, how has your family responded, and like, do they use that terminology now with taking those moments, or how has that been for you?
Oh, that's a great question. And so I think that definitely they've embraced it. My mom instantly embraced it. As I mentioned, she's a psychologist. She's also a mindfulness practitioner. So instantly resonated with her and my father, because when I talked to them a little bit more about it and they read more about it, it was very evident that, again, as a family, these were the types of things and the moments that we created for ourselves. We had every Friday night, without fail, was Friday night dinner for the family. and the memories that came along with that, camping, going fishing, my dad and I throwing a tent in the back of the car when I was a kid, and heading and pitching a tent somewhere for the weekend, our ski trips, our togetherness, our openness, our just TV dinners. I think every once a week we were able to sit in front of the TV and watch Little House on the Prairie. So for them, when I introduced it to them, it was like a natural, oh yeah. And Copenhagen happened to be one of the first places they traveled when they got married. So it kind of came full circle. And my husband as well. I think he embraced the idea. He's very supportive of what I do. He's very supportive of the idea of bringing Hygge elements and how I've kind of been carte blanche to create that Hygge environment in my home. You know, my daughter's 16-year-old teenager, she rolls her eyes. I do have a license plate. Maybe it's a little bit over the top, but my license plate is Hygge. So my daughter has commented that I'm not allowed to drop her off in front of the high school, but others certainly. And then same with my friends, they just absolutely fell in love when they learned about it. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, so how did you come up with the idea to do the Hygge boxes? So great question. It's actually was a bit of a journey coming to the boxes. As I learned about Hygge back in 2016-ish, 17, you know, those years are still a bit foggy, but in that time frame when I ultimately started Hygge Canada, when the word came to me, I was working with a coach, and I knew that I wanted to offer coaching. I wanted to offer something that was going to bring joy to other people. And I didn't really know that it was going to be a Hygge business at the time. I thought I was actually going to be a coach for people who were grieving, is where I was going with that. And then I realized at that time that I didn't want to do that because I wasn't quite ready to do that kind of coaching. Now it's a different story, but at that time, it wasn't the right coaching for me. And when I started to discuss Hygge with my coach right away, when I was together, we were working on what do I love? What brings me joy? Talk to me about your childhood. What are those happy moments? And how can we create that dream job around that, or that dream business around that? I shared the word Hygge with him. And I really did not think that there was going to be a business opportunity in that. I just didn't even think of it that way. And right away, he said, hello, like alarm bells going off, Jill, like your business is Hygge, like you are Hygge. And at that point, I said, great. So I'm going to create Hygge coaching and Hygge programs. And I started doing some events and retreats. And I did a couple of big documentary screenings at Fort White in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And then at one point I had heard about FabFitFun. I didn't know anything about subscription boxes. In fact, most people in Winnipeg, I don't think it was a thing. Like it just really wasn't popular other than FabFitFun. And I mentioned that to my coach. And then he also said, alarm bells, like Jill, hello. How about you doing a Hygge subscription box? Because I really wanted to introduce people to the world of Hygge by bringing it to their doorstep. And at that time, I was just getting established. So I didn't have, you know, a big group of individuals that were like, you know, let's say following me on social media or whatnot, that I could really get sort of that Hygge message out. And it was just a fun way. And as soon as I realized that this was fun, in addition to workshops and coaching and retreats, it just came to be. Yeah. What kind of Hygge workshops do you have coming up for the spring? So I actually just had to postpone a workshop that was supposed to have happened last weekend in Winnipeg. And so I'm hoping to do another workshop in Winnipeg in the spring, more of a day workshop. I'm also looking at potentially doing a spring or summer weekend workshop, potentially in Manitoba. So that would be somewhere outside of Winnipeg for a couple of days. And then in terms of other workshops, virtually, I'm planning to do this again in the spring. So a spring version of this free workshop. And I think right now that's probably the most. And I am planning to do some, what's what I'm thinking of, from destination retreats. where I'm looking at various destinations across Manitoba, across Canada, actually, and even potentially into the United Kingdom. So that's more down the road on the horizon, but I think there will be probably a 3 to 4 day workshop, a retreat happening in more than likely Alberta in the fall. Any other questions? Would you ever travel to Kenora? Of course, yes. 1000%. I do go to Kenora. In fact, one of the retreats I was looking at doing was in the Kenora area. And I do have, for sure, Alberta retreat, yes, please. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at potentially Jasper or Banff area. All right. So how do you source your vendors for the products that end up in the Hygge boxes? Okay, excellent question. This is one of the most important. Actually, I was asked this question the other night by a lady who used to be in the gift basket business. And I said to her, for my sister and I, this is probably one of the most important parts of what we do. Number one, when we're creating our boxes, it's really important for us. We do 99% of the companies and the businesses that we support are Canadian because we're from Canada and we really want to get back to the great country that we live in and supporting Canadians. And basically what we look for in our vendors is that they're not massively mass manufactured. We do like small batch makers. We love makers that give back. We look for makers that donate some proceeds of their products to various organizations. We look for organizations that might be B Corp. So really looking at being mindful of the environmental impact. We're looking for ones that are cruelty-free, products that never tested on animals, fair trade. So there's those, like that's pretty much our starting point with the majority of our makers. Now, not all of our makers are going to meet those kind of certified criteria, like B Corp, that's only a handful of organizations. We also look for the small scale makers that are just really trying to do something really great. And when we're sourcing our products, we're really also thinking, what do we think other people would like? And what do we like? Nothing that ever goes in a box isn't something that we've personally tried ourselves. Any other questions? Okay. So let's move on to the last part of our time together is our giveaway time. And so what we are giving away is not a version of this box that you see here, but a version of our International Hygge Day box. And International Hygge Day is next week on February 28th. And that was why we wanted to do this workshop today, to give you some time to think about, what could I do on February 28th? Who could my Hygge buddy be? What could I do for myself? Whether I want to spend time on my own and just really rejuvenate and go inwards and retreat a little bit from my own Hygge time. Or maybe I want to create an opportunity to connect with some friends and some loved ones. So the giveaway that we're giving away is the International Hygge Day box, which literally is going to be shipping like any day now, we're ready, and plus a Hygge strategy session with myself. If you would like, we would spend some time just talking about what some of your Hygge goals might be. Could be a coaching session, but really about creating some strategy around bringing more Hygge into your life in any facets of your life. What we spoke about today barely scratched the surface on what Hygge really can do and where you can bring Hygge into parenting, Hygge into workplace, Hygge into just how you travel, so many things. It really is all encompassing. So that would be what our Hygge strategy session is. Now, the way that the giveaway is going to work, it's a bit of a race to who knows the answer. So it really is the first person to get the answer in chat is the individual who will win the prize. So my question to you is, thinking back to many slides ago, what number in the World Happiness Report for 2022, where did Denmark land? So the first, oh my gosh, so wow, you guys are way too quick to that. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go up. Yes, number 2, you guys were all paying attention. So Rebecca Nilsson, you were the first one to get that in. And I think it was literally so many of you right on the minute. Amazing. So Rebecca, I do know how to reach you, so I can connect with you about that. Again, guys, I really just want to give everyone a huge thank you for taking the time. Some of you, I know it's later in the evening. I'm actually in Florida right now. I'm not in Winnipeg. I'm visiting my parents, so it's late for me here. I do appreciate wherever you dialed in from, that you took the time. I hope you all learned a little something new today. Like I said, we covered a ton. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or you wanted to explore anything a little bit further. So huge thank you. And I will keep an eye out for the next date for this event in the springtime. Thank you, everyone.